Welcome, everyone. I'm Jessie from Pong. I'm the comms co-lead at Spring, which is an organization that supports activists, nonprofits, funders, and other changemakers around the world who are trying to build just and life-sustaining systems. So I'm joined today with Spring's co-CEOs, Ellen Sprenger and Archana Deshpande, as well as the head of our leadership coaching program, Márcia Kodama. So why are we here today? We're here to talk about leadership in times like these. So what's happening around the world right now and how are movements and philanthropic spaces responding to it? And why is how we lead and how we move with the changes that are happening so important? I think it's fair to say we're in a moment of change. And so the question is, how are we inviting this change into our own lives and how are we moving with it? And so Ellen, I want to start with you because you and Archana and Márcia, you work with hundreds of activists and change makers around the world, this past year. So what are you hearing from them? What are the stories that are standing out to you from your work in recent times?
I would highlight two things. I think if you watch the news, we all get a sense that we're not winning. So people who devote their lives to justice, fair, life-sustaining societies, we get the sense that we're not winning. That puts a lot of pressure on us, right? So we sometimes say, you can be in a comfort zone in this work, change-making work. You can be in a stress zone. And in between is a stretch zone, which is really a sweet spot, where we grow and learn. And I think we're kind of like pushing into that stress zone, feeling panicked sometimes or overwhelmed. And I think that's a theme that I've definitely noticed, that people are trying to manage. How are we relating to this moment? And I think there's another thing that's going on, and that is actually giving me a lot of hope. And that is that we're searching deeper inside of ourselves to what can I trust? What's really there? So we get this awareness of, oh, this is my response right now, right, to a situation, and create some spaciousness that I can try maybe some different things. So different conversations are taking place. It feels like a creative and potent time, and also a very overwhelming or confusing time. So both is happening at the same time.
I've talked to you previously, Ellen, about the stress zone and what happens in the stress zone, and we've talked about it in terms of a little drawing. And it was like, what kind of chicken are you in your stress zone, in your panic zone? Do you withdraw from people? Do you blame other people? Do you blame yourself? Do you avoid everything altogether? So maybe that's an invitation to all of our listeners: is what kind of chicken are you in your stress zone, and how do you work with that? How do you manage that? And maybe also a question for Archana and Márcia, how are you feeling in this moment right now with your work? Are you a chicken in your stress zone, or are you feeling differently? Maybe Archana, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I love the chicken analogy because I feel like when I'm in this group, it's hard to be in a stress zone. It always feels like a comfort zone and a stretch zone with all of you in the room. But in general, I think I've experienced it very personally myself, and with participants of other programs and folks we've worked with around the world. This kind of crisis opens opportunity for us internally and externally. And this kind of, what is the opportunity you're hearing for yourself in it? How can I move differently now? A coach once told me, right? Like, we need great external catalysts to help us make deep internal changes. And I think that's what we're experiencing. I'm seeing it across the board, and I'm experiencing it personally. And so there's this possibility that comes from feeling like you've reached the limit in a current way of thinking and a way of being and doing in the world. Thinking about the chickens. I don't know. I guess I kind of would say I would initially withdraw, because the temptation is to kind of, for me personally, ask myself the questions of what's important, like what just happened, to really create space for making sense before I can act or move, or make any decision or move in any direction. And I know that works really well in some cases, but sometimes there's no time for that. And you really need to be able to resource yourself in the moment and move. How about you, Márcia?
Well, definitely. I think I am the withdraw chicken. I don't think I turn my back to whatever is happening. I just withdraw, and I get a little silent because I'm thinking, And I think Archana told me once when Marcia gets silent, it's that she's thinking. And I'm like, oh, maybe not so brilliant. I'm just trying to settle myself, trying to just breathe and get back to my center so that I can say something smart.
I must say, it makes me feel a little lonely because I'm the chicken who's going to go in, it's like, okay, what's going on? So I'm like pecking, what's this? What's that? Is it this? Is it that? And then all of you have sort of left the building. So where does that leave me? Hey, that helps me understand a few things, actually.
That's actually very valuable, though, because if everyone's withdrawing, we kind of need you to like peck us back in. Otherwise, everyone's just in their own corner and nothing's going to get unstressed.
Well, but that's the invitation, right? How can all us chickens just stay in the room and stay engaged and stay in the conversation? So what I'm seeing is a lot of opportunity to really collaborate. So lots of co-ED-ships emerging and working in different organizations, and also inside the teams, how to really make teams work together in a way that's resourceful, that's supportive.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that we really, really hope to cultivate in the Leadership Kitchen is this open curiosity. Stay open and stay curious. The world is calling us to stay really creative and open and maybe not, find a solution to a problem tomorrow because the complexity is so high, right? The levels of complexity are so high. And an awareness that we all at times turn into some kind of chicken, right? And that's actually part of the process too. If you think about the kitchen and the series, this is definitely one essential that we're going to be playing with.
Something we've talked about before is that like each of us is going to be meeting this moment differently, whether that's in our comfort zone, our stretch zone, or our stress zone. And some of us might be really activated, ready to keep fighting against the injustice that's happening. Some of us may be really needing to take a time out and just like heal and rest. And so I want to come to it. Like, what does it look like to meet this moment in generative ways? What does that mean concretely? And what could be unleashed if more of us are able to do that, to stay connected and to be generative. So really love to hear your thoughts.
The definition of generative is life-giving. And so what it means for me is bring something into a conversation or in a group, right? That helps us all move forward in a way that we discover something new, or it's meaningful. It touches our hearts. It helps us connect more with each other, or it helps us explore the conflict that we have. And this is another essential that we're going to be talking about, is the importance of also working with conflict in generative ways. And so how do you do that? By, first of all, normalizing that we might all have different perspectives on a topic. And we can even turn the heat up a little bit as a facilitator and say, with permission, let's explore every single perspective on this topic right now. Let's do that for the next half hour. And you might even take a position that you don't agree with, but if you come up with a strong argument, just throw it in. And you get this like enlivening, right? Like unstuckness and exploration. And then you go like, wait a minute, what is the wisdom in this? What are the themes that are coming out? So then you start processing, and then you say, you could ask everybody, what is an insight that you walk away with from this, that maybe you didn't have before? Like, what are we harvesting? And that is generative in the sense of working with difference and working with sameness and difference and turning up the difference so that we can all, it's like harvesting the wisdom that is in all of us. So that is also generative, as is a culture of care. Maybe singing together, or doing things that we don't normally do, or cooking beautiful meals and just listening to each other's stories. Right? That's my definition, but I'm going to ping it to Archana.
To me, generative is your life force. How is it showing up in every space that you're part of? And is it open and unstuck? And not that you need to always be unstuck. That's not a thing. But to be dynamically able to work with your energetic yourself, your own energy, and in the room energy with anybody else that you're showing up with. That to me is kind of a quality of generative that I think about in this context of doing this work in these times, in this moment of history. What for me that unleashes is possibilities we haven't imagined yet. So possibilities for moving together, possibilities for doing different, possibilities for being in for caring, creating community, reimagining and building society. But yeah, it's something about like showing up with your life force in a way that's dynamic and recognizing it and working with part of what you think about, not just an afterthought.
I love how your different personalities come in because, like Ellen, I can like feel your energy for conflict and difference, and you're like new perspectives. That's what's going to unleash creativity. And then Arch and I feel like this flow and this like authenticity while like trying on new things. That's what's going to bring creative potential because it's like you'll be your full self. And
oh, don't get me wrong. I think conflict is necessary. We need to be able to step into it, but to step into it from a place of that curiosity and that like even to allow ourselves to do that requires kind of dynamically working with. I think there's an inner piece to it, an inner alignment flow piece to it.
But Jessie, you're so right. We are very different people, Márcia, Archana, and I, and that is also why we look forward so much to doing this together, right? Like the three of us to deliver a program like that and design it together, right? It's the first time we're doing it, so it'll be really fun.
The reality that none of us are going to do it alone. And so we're co-creating even the space together because that's the nature of the work. That's the nature of how we need to move in these times, I think. So anyways, yeah, difference is great. I love it.
Okay, Marcia, now we got to know what you're going to say.
I think what I would add is that there is also being in the present with what's real, right? And also really paying attention to what is it that we need to let go of. Because there is a lot of thinking and ideas that we kind of get stuck with, including all of us. And then that takes us out of the generative space because then we are thinking the same thoughts or having the same ideas or staying in this cycle. So really dropping into what's happening in the moment. And it can be painful at times, but just be open and be real. And I know that's much easier to say than do, but I think that's important, to just drop and stay engaged as we were talking about before, right?
I want to get into what the Leadership Kitchen is because this is our newest leadership training. It's for people around the world, and it's going to be a live cohort-based program, which is really, really exciting for us and hopefully for you if you're joining the program. In each session, Archana, Ellen, and Marcia are going to take you through what we're calling leadership essentials. So each session, you're going to dive into one leadership essential. And I'm going to throw to Archana to tell us a bit more about the program, how it's structured, how it feels.
Yeah, so this is going to be a really dynamic series, and each session you can expect to have an opportunity to connect with other people, get to know them a little bit. You'll have an input on a topic, on the topic of the day, and then we'll have some sort of practice or some sort of exercises that we will try on together in the space. And you'll also then think about how you're going to bring it back and integrate it into your life, into your work. That's kind of roughly what you can expect from each session. Now, the flavor of each session will be really different. I'm excited about all of them really secretly, but I'm quite looking forward to is around emotional resilience, emotional intelligence. Like there's some roller coasters we are riding right now with just everything that's happening, no matter what place you are in, and working with that, I think is so essential. And just building awareness and how to kind of dynamically accept and transform emotions into kind of possibilities is really exciting piece for me. But what about you, Ellen and Marcia? What ingredients are you looking forward to playing with, cooking with?
I think I'm excited about the balance between what is, tools, techniques, but also what happens inside us and how can we apply it. Because sometimes we learn a lot of tools, but it's really hard to apply them, right? I think I'm excited about the arc of the journey of working together and really, see how this is going to unfold for us and also for the participants.
We're going to talk about what leadership is. That's actually, let me start there. There's this sense of who's a leader, right? So first we're going to demystify that, and we're going to say, well, a leader is you deciding you're a leader, right? You want your life to matter, and you want to leave a room, a conversation, a relationship better than how you found it, right? So it's a way of being, and it's not necessarily an external role or a title. It could be both, right? So participants will be a mix, but I think that inner and outer role, that's an important distinction to make. And then we're going to talk about the cycle of transformation. So how do we grow? Because we said it's a personal growth and practice space. So is there a way of accelerating our growth without, so it's not like a race to run, where you're out of breath and exhausted, right? So with ease, is there certain things you can do? And what we're going to talk about is that if you set an intention, and we like to use the word, what's my goal? Where do I want to grow as a leader, right? And we cultivate an awareness of self. So we start seeing our own patterns. For example, do I have a preference for fast over slow? This is a fun thing for the three of us, right? Because we all sit somewhere else on that continuum, right? And if everything should be fast, maybe I should develop the muscle of slow, because sometimes we need slow, right? So become aware of your habitual ways. And because our habitual ways are brilliant, because they got us to where we are now, right? But they're not always the best response to a moment. And just it starts with seeing that. So we set an intention, and then we learn these different perspectives, and it starts with self-awareness. And once that starts to happen, a lot opens up, because then you see, but there is so many different ways that we can lead and approach things, right? And then the third part is the practice part, right? Like actionable. So every session you'll leave with a thought of, I'm going to try something. So intention, perspective, action. That's the cycle of transformation, and that's sort of woven into how we structure the days. So I'm excited about that session.
A lot of trainings give people, tools, and this is what you need to do, this is what you need to say. And I think what's special about our programs is we give you tools, yes, but it's really grounded in sort of like the strengths and edges that you identify in yourself, and how you build the recipe of how you want to lead. I think people can bring a lot into the program and make a lot of it. How you're imagining people will change. Like if you were talking to someone and you wanted to say, like, what are you going to come out of this program with? Archana, what would you tell people about how they're going to feel and what they're going to come out of this program with?
I think people will come away with more confidence, with more community, with more of a muscle to try things on. I think that's also a thing, right? Like we're not going to get it right wherever we are in this work. And I think this disposition of doing things intentionally, taking a wider perspective, like a widening perspective on an ongoing way, and trying things on, it's just the way of being that we kind of are stealthily trying to embody and collectively embody through this kind of effort of the Leadership Kitchen. So hopefully it's that confidence that I'm not doing this alone. There's other people out there. It's not about getting it right. It's about trying it. And also, of course, tools and resources and lots of things that you can bring back to your team. And you're not going to be able to try everything on all at once, right? So this discernment of what do you want to do now, and what might you come back to, and what do you want to share with others, is hopefully this feeling of abundance, I'll say, an abundance of things that you can walk away with in your toolkit.
Yeah, and I think some people might just be looking for, have I covered them all? Where maybe my weak spots or the gaps? And then it could be like a tune-up, right? Like a physical, right? You go to the doctor, you do physicals, you say, hey, sometimes it's good to have a checkup, in the middle of the journey. What do people come away with, Márcia? What do you think?
Well, first, I think humility of saying, oh my God, I want to learn a little bit about this, but also the pride of knowing, well, I'm really good at this one. So I'm good with this. I can help support other people. And think about possibilities that open up as we keep our journey going. And then we're not stuck and we're all together in this journey. So just hearing the stories from each other, just touch us in a way that I think not even us can imagine at this moment.
Yeah, and we hope that people will join us live. I think there's a real value in being together and meeting other people and seeing the commonalities and also the differences. But if you can't, because we all lead busy lives, there'll be recordings, and we have a lab space where the tools are, so people can also revisit them afterwards. And, in the kitchen is where things happen, right? It's messy. We're trying new things. We create, we celebrate. Right? So being live in the kitchen is different than watching a cooking show on television, right? So
what is a transformation that people can make out of doing this sort of leadership work on themselves? A story from yourself or a story from a participant you've worked with?
This is a personal story. And when I started doing all of this work, right, coaching, facilitating, once I got a very, painful feedback. And I'm like, oh my God, what I'm going to do? I'm in the wrong place. I shouldn't be doing this. This is not for me, that kind of thing. I was disturbed, but then very curious about how am I going to do this? Because I really want to do this work. I really want to work with people. So how am I going to do this? And I started my developmental journey, let's say. But what I learned in that process, which was really important, is that if we are able to give and receive feedback in a skillful way, we can really support each other. Because the way I received that feedback was devastating. It took me like a real personal strength for me to come back and keep on my journey. I could have just quit, right? So one thing that I learned, and I'm practicing, is to be able to really give skillful feedbacks and also become more able to receive the feedbacks so that it's really useful and it's supportive. So this is part of one of our sessions, and I hope the participants will also learn that in their lives too.
Well, no, I just want to say that Márcia is the masterful in giving and receiving feedback and leading groups to do that in very generative ways, to just bring back that comment or the exploration that we had earlier, right? So a journey for me has been working with emotions. I remember working with groups and leading an organization myself. And anytime there was anything that was emotional or uncomfortable, I would just say, okay, let's take a break. And then I would go, I hope it's gone when we get back, And I couldn't really work with it because my fear was that if we go there, it'll escalate and I don't know what to do with it. And so for me to get comfortable and confident in working with difference and emotion, etc., meant that I needed to get comfortable with my own emotions. I think Márcia, around giving and receiving feedback, right? Can turn into a strength. And so I think the human development is just amazing. I like to use the metaphor of an egg. When you boil it, it's still an egg, but you cannot unboil it, right? So real human development is that, sustained. It's the new normal that you take with you going forward. And if you can unlock that, it's extremely powerful.
And it's different, right? Every person has different things that they're hung up on. That's what I would say. And it's not, again, about, it's yes, skilling up, but skilling up with the awareness and what do you need now? Is it more, what ingredient do you need to cook with more right now to make the recipe for this moment? So, there's no such thing as perfection in it. We're dancing.
I think that's a really great place to kind of end, because there's no such thing as perfection, but there's unlimited possibilities, I think, is what I'm getting from what you're sharing, Beautiful place to end. Thank you, three, for this conversation. And if you're watching and curious about the Leadership Kitchen, please send us an email, reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. And hopefully we'll see you in the next cohort. Thanks, everyone.